All right. Thanks so much, Daryl. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for joining me in this webinar. I've been really looking forward to doing it. I'm really excited to talk to y'all tonight. So to just go ahead and jump right in, I'm going to introduce my profit recycling 2.0 strategy, or as I kind of like to call it in this environment, my pandemic trading plan. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison Ostrander, and I am the Director of Risk Tolerance as well as an options specialist here at Simpler Trading. So just to start off right off the bat, I wanted to go ahead and show an example of this strategy and how it works and how I've used it to be successful, both when we saw that extreme volatile environment back in March, as well as in the current environment that we have here today, where we're getting back into a bullish trend. We've seen some chop. This strategy really works great in any market environment. So with this example here, on the hourly chart for SPX, I got a great signal to look at going short at 130. I did the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, covered it for a minimum $15 profit per contract, right? It was a small profit guaranteed, locked in. The most important thing, though, is that I had protected my capital risk on the trade, and it was a same day expiration. So within that day, once it went into settlement, I was able to lock in a total profit of $420 per contract. Overall, on the initial risk that I put in the trade, it was a 381% return. So guaranteed myself a small profit no matter what happened on the trade. On the settlement that day, was able to take a very nice, substantial profit and was able to walk away overall very happy with my account that day. So what we'll be talking about tonight is the introduction to how to intraday trade without using a day trade. I'll talk about my strategy for flipping losers into winners, my secret combo for trading, as I like to call it, my dynamic duo as of right now, my introduction, of course, to the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, as well as some examples, some real life examples that I've taken in my account to show you how I've used this strategy successfully in order to grow it. So for those of you who might not know me, just a little bit about myself. I started my trading journey fresh out of college with a BFA in theater performance. It's not your typical financial fast track going into the market or hedge fund or anything like that. I started off with theater. And as I was getting ready to graduate, to help support myself, I was actually introduced to the idea of trading from my dad. My dad had been a trader for a while. He was starting his options journey himself. And he was trying to get all of us kids on board to learn this life skill. And I was the only one that kind of stepped up to the plate and was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. That definitely sounds better than waiting tables, right? I might be able to use it to help fund some of my pursuits. So I started first paper trading to kind of show that I knew what I was doing. And then from there, decided to pay some money, did some one-on-one coaching. And within my first real money trade, I was able to completely recoup my coaching fees and walk away with a profit. And it was at that moment I realized, oh, this is definitely going to be a second passion of mine. I'm instantly hooked to it. And so, trading at first seemed easy. I thought I knew what I was doing. I grew my paper account. I was making winners on my first several trades. But there was actually a problem that started bubbling below the surface. And maybe some of you have also run into this problem as well. And it's what I like to call the dark side of trading. For my Star Wars fans out there, right? It's kind of that evil force that can sometimes happen. And there were a few negative things that ended up occurring to me when I was trading. The first thing was my eyes were completely glued to my charts and to futures long after the market was closed. I was keeping an eye on China and Asia and they're open. I was looking at Europe's open and close. I was watching how my trades were doing and pre-market and post-market, watching futures market. And of course, when you're up late kind of watching these things, kind of stressed out about your trades, you end up getting into a lack of sleep due to how many trades I had on and trying to keep up with the market and everything else. And so because of that lack of sleep, because my eyes were always glued to my charts, Of course, my emotions started to run my trading a bit more instead of the technicals like I had originally learned off of, right? And so oftentimes I would find myself in trades that would start to go against me. And instead of closing them out, instead of flipping them from losing trades into winning trades, I had hope, right? I was just like, oh, I hope it's going to work out. It definitely has to work out. And I ended up with staggering losses in my account. And I remember that first loss. I just couldn't believe I took that much of a losing trade and lost that much money on it. And I took a step back when that happened and I looked at all of these negative aspects of trading and I realized that they all started to stem from one main issue, and that was capital risk. And in turn, it was what my own personal risk tolerance was for my trading. And I realized this lack of understanding capital risk fed into all my negative thoughts about trading, and it fed into that dark side of trading overall. And of course, as y'all might know, um, the dark side of trading causes more emotions to guide rather than just letting the technicals go through, right? And that, of course, makes you have losses in your account. So I realized that I need to have a grapple on capital risk in order to turn my account back around and start gaining and start putting money back into my pocket. So my new focus became on risk. That became my main focus around trading no matter what. Each trade I took constantly had me analyzing my risk versus reward on the individual trade, as well as my overall account. How much risk was this taking up in my total account value? And anytime I look at trading or I develop a new strategy, risk is always my guiding focus. I always want to be mindful of capital risk, never using too much of it. I'm definitely more conservative trader in that case, trying to find ways to minimize as much risk as possible and still be able to grow my account successfully. So, as some of you might know, I recently became a first-time mom to a beautiful baby girl. And after maternity leave, I was definitely a little bit optimistic about coming back to trading, but I got into the flow of it. After, a few months, I was able to figure out what I needed to do. And I started to get back into that work, and adjusting back to the commuting and working and trading. And I thought I started having a handle on everything between that work-life balance. And I thought the flow was going to continue to last. And then the coronavirus hit, right? And of course, like many of you, we were forced to work from home. And not only did the market start to plummet, but like I mentioned, there was those stay-at-home orders issues. And I found myself once again at home rather than in the office, trying to balance work, trying to balance trading. And now my 8th-month-old, who still proved that she liked to run the show, right? Instead of simple feedings and nap times like it was when I first had my daughter, it was now demanding playtime and total attention on her. And so because of this new way of life, and certainly working from home now, I started to struggle to find the time for it all once again. Between, juggling her in my arms and trying to put on trades and certainly being in the main trading room of the option subscription, while scoping out charts and everything else, I realized that I needed to take a step back and readjust my trading plan. And of course, with unemployment at record highs, with food prices continuing to go up, with a growing family, I knew I needed to be even more mindful of capital. But I also needed that new plan to trade successfully while being able to multitask at home. I knew I needed to encompass all of that. So that's where the profit recycling 2.0 strategy came in. It's a time-efficient way to intraday trade options without necessarily having to sit at the charts all day. I know some of you might have taken my first profit recycling class where you kind of have to sit at the chart and watch it and pay attention to the signals. And I found a new way that I could do this without having to spend all my time at the computer. And so what is the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, this is an option strategy that is primarily used for intraday trading without having to use any of those pesky day trading rules. So I can avoid having an account above 25,000 where I have those unlimited day trades. I don't have to use them up, and I'm still able to take advantage of these intraday moves, which is certainly great back in March with those intraday that volatility and everything else. And it's still great in this market environment now. However, unlike the normal intraday trading, which causes you to stay at your computer watching the charts all day, right? Or at least during the time that you plan to intraday trade, this new take allows you for actually to have more consistent follow through, more consistent profits on a very simple signal. So instead of kind of doing that guesswork that you sometimes have to do when you're looking at a chart, like, is this an entry? Do I need to take it? This strategy gives you step-by-step rules to say, yes, there's the signal, there's the entry, I'm taking it. And you can walk away from your computer and find yourself with a locked-in profit later in the day. So who is Profit Recycling 2.0 for? Well, it's for traders who don't have the time to sit at their computer all day, right? I am completely there with you. Like I said, my daughter demands a lot of time. So as much as I would like to be able to watch the market from open to close each day, I find myself throughout the day having to step away and work with her and feeding and taking naps and everything else. Certainly I have to step away for other things that I'm doing behind the scenes at work at Simpler Trading. And so I don't have the time to sit at my chart all day and watch for these signals. It's also for anyone who wants to keep their risk low while growing their accounts. This is a very low risk strategy. So it's a great way to protect your capital overall and still take advantage of these intraday moves. This strategy is great for traders who like a step-by-step plan that is easy to follow with no guesswork. As I mentioned, I didn't have time to kind of analyze the charts and say, okay, this looks like a good entry, let me jump in. No, if the signal's there, I take it. If the signal's not there, I don't take it. I save my capital for when that signal appears. And then, of course, it's for traders who like to take advantage of the intraday moves without using a day trade. It's great for people who have small accounts like myself, under 25,000. We have that limited amount of day trades, and I've certainly been there where I've gone over the 3-day trades. And I've had to sit for 90 days until that account was allowed to be able to trade again. For those of you who don't know, if you have an account under 25,000 and you use all 3-day trades, you either have to wait for the account to get above 25,000, only able to close out of existing orders, right? You can't put on any new trades. Or you have to wait 90 days for your account to reset itself and allow you to day trade again. So because of that, this is a great strategy to completely avoid those rules and still take advantage of those intraday moves. So here's another example of this strategy. This is on SPY back on an hourly chart. I got the signal right within that first hour of open, took a Profit Recycling 2.0 trade, and covered my risk for a minimum of a 105 profit per contract. The next day, I added to that additional profit and closed out for a total profit of $167 per contract, which was a 63% return on my original max risk that I had on the trade at one time. So not only did I guarantee myself, once again, a minimum profit, but the next day I was still able to close out of the trade, not ever using those day trades, and walk away with $167 per contract overall. So what is the best type of market condition for this strategy? Well, like I mentioned earlier, the strategy can be used on any market type. It works great in trending as well as volatile markets. As I mentioned, back in March, when we saw the biggest monthly range that the SPX has ever seen, or certainly within the last 20 years, this strategy worked phenomenally during that time, giving me great signals to jump in and out of trades. But I also used this strategy on the way back up when the market started to turn around. And even now, when we've kind of just been chopping around a little bit, testing around 3,000, 3,100 in the S&P, it's still a great strategy to use even in the current market as is. And of course, it can be traded on symbols with recent IPOs. So I know some of you guys like to jump into those new symbols. I think the big one right now is the betting website, DKNG, I think it is. So it's a great symbol that is able to be used on those recent IPOs as well. So here's an example of Beyond Meat when it first came out. And this is one of the dynamic duo indicators that I use in this strategy. And you can see here with these down arrows were some bearish signals on the chart. You can see that we did follow through with some lower lows there. Here were some bullish signals on the chart, and it followed through with higher highs. And with this particular indicator, we'll talk about it a bit more here in a little bit. But the best thing about it is as soon as you have a bar that prints, whether on a daily chart, it's the first day of trading, on an hourly chart, the first hour of trading, as soon as you have that bar print, then the next bar, that signal could immediately start to appear. So unlike other indicators where you have to wait for time and some data to occur, for example, this dotted line here is my 10-period simple moving average. Notice how you have to wait several days of trading before this indicator even pops up because of the data that it needs behind it. For this indicator, you only need one prior bar to print for it to start printing potential signals. So what account size do you need to trade this? Well, as I kind of highlighted earlier, this is a wonderful strategy for traders with any account size. I've traded very small accounts, which I currently hold. I hold smaller accounts right now. And I've also traded accounts over $1 million to help grow my family accounts and things like that. And I've used this strategy in both of those account sizes, right? So it can be used in any account. But I will say it's especially great for smaller accounts or for those who don't want capital tied up in long-term trades. I actually, some of you might know, I'm doing a $500 challenge account where I'm taking a very small amount of capital. Some people might say, how do you even make an account with $500 grow? But I've been doing that, and I'm in the middle of that challenge right now, and I've already grown the account over 100%. So I have over $500 of profit in there as is. And I've been using this strategy. I've still been very mindful of my risk, even in that small account. I've never put the full $500 of capital into any one trade. And certainly I've never even put the full $500 of capital into multiple trades that I've been in. I've always had cash available on hand, even in the small account. And I've still been able to use this strategy and grow it out like I've been doing. So here's another example of the profit recycling 2.0 strategy. This one here was on Roku. I started to get some great signals on the 10-minute chart as well as on the hourly chart, making some nice bullish divergent bars, getting some great signals on the compound breakout tool, which is the other indicator we'll talk about tonight. And so I took a profit recycling trade as the start to move higher into earnings, and I covered it for a minimum $55 profit on the trade. And I could have closed it out, but I decided to hold it through earnings as a fun lotto trade. Now, as some of you guys know, anything can happen around the earnings announcement. In this case, Roku completely fell off and dropped on earnings. But it was nice having a free trade out there. It's actually a trade I still hold, where no matter what, I'm walking away with a profit. So the trade I had was actually a bit more of a bullish bet. So more than likely, I'm still just going to take the $55 profit per contract on it. But as I mentioned, instead of taking a loss, instead of putting capital out there and having it just being a losing trade I had to suck up and deal with in my account, I was able to put out a trade where either way, I know I'm walking away with a profit. And then maybe I could have walked away with an extra $500 per contract if it had worked in my favor. And if not, hey, it's no sweat off my back because I'm still walking away at the end of the day. First of all, protecting my capital. And second of all, locking in some money into my account. So why did I develop the profit recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, my trading focus, like I mentioned, has always been on reducing and protecting capital risk. That is my main focus no matter what. As long as I can protect my capital, I am a happy camper. And so being an intraday trader at heart, I knew I needed to figure out a new way to trade while not having to sit and focus solely on charts for hours at a time. I just am not able to do that at this point in my life. Maybe I will again one day, but right now there's just no way I can juggle it all. So I was forced to find a way to juggle everything from trading to helping run the home to still working and making every aspect of my life successful. So how can we profit from less chart time? I know for certainly you intraday traders out there, you're like, how can you possibly make money and not be staring and looking at your chart in case the signal reverses or, in case you need to take the profit? How are you able to do this? And I am able to do this, right? We've shown examples. I am certainly not at my computer all day able to focus on it. And many of you probably have your own jobs, you have family, other passions in life, right? Maybe you're in retirement mode and you're like, I don't want to sit at my computer all day. And so this is a great strategy to be able to do that, where you don't have to spend all day or hours at a time in front of the computer during market hours and still be able to take advantage of these intraday moves. This strategy can be implemented with just a quick glance at the chart and a trade order sent out. So here's another example. This was actually on TTWO. We had some great signals going into the earnings for jumping into some bullish trades here. So I took a profit recycling trade on this. Once again, $274 minimum profit per contract that was locked in using this strategy. It was 118% minimum return on risk. And once again, held it through the earnings announcement to see whether or not I could take some additional profit from there. But either way, very happy that I know I'm walking away with $274 per contract on this trade and not going to walk away with a loser no matter what happened around that earnings announcement. Very happy to take that profit and lock it in. So what are the benefits of the profit recycling 2.0 strategy? Well, you can trade without having to be at your computer all market day. It's great for building up and growing accounts on a very low risk trades, right? These are very small risk trades that I'm putting on, so it's not eating up a lot of capital in my account either. It's an easy to follow plan with no guesswork involved. As I mentioned, right, sometimes certainly, with the first profit recycling class, it was kind of like, okay, here's the signals, here's the alignment. This looks like a good entry. Let's try and get in. No, there's no guesswork involved in this. It's very strict on, is there a signal? Yes, there is. Let's jump into it. If there's not, no need to put my capital out there. And it's a great way to manage capital as well and flip trades around when the chart changes direction. So I kind of mentioned that at the start of the webinar where, sometimes you're stuck with a losing trade, right? And as traders, we have to accept that there are going to be some losses that we take. That's just the nature of trading. But with this strategy, there's actually sometimes a way that you can flip those losing trades back into winners, right? Back into protecting your capital, back into a winning trade overall. And that's what I really love about this strategy. So here's an example of EA that I opened a trade, right? And for those of you who know, we finally started to see that nice move to the upside that we were anticipating on EA. But I was in a short-term trade whenever this pullback was occurring. And so the trade was going to end up as a loss. And I was like, I don't want to take a loss, right? So I evaluated the trade, realized I could use the profit recycling 2.0 strategy. And so I flipped that trade from loser into winner and guaranteed myself that on that trade a minimum profit of $9 per contract. So I went from a complete and 100% loss on a trade to a small guaranteed win. The next day, I was able to close it out for a bit more, locking in a $39 profit per contract, which was actually a 51% return on my original capital risk. So my risk on the trade overall, like I mentioned, I'm always mindful of risk. It was still rather small to begin with, but it was going to be a total loss. And instead of taking the total loss, I flipped it around and was still able to first and most importantly protect my capital, and second of all, still walk away with a profit for my account. So what time frame can this be used on? Well, the strategy can work on multiple time frames from intraday to monthly. I've shown you some examples of intraday trades where I've gotten the signal, and it certainly can be used on the longer time frames if you choose to. I primarily use this strategy on a 1-hour chart. I've recently started doing it sometimes on a 30-minute chart as well, and it's been working out good as 2 on that time frame. And then I've also used it on daily charts and weekly charts, oftentimes locking in profits the same or next day. So this strategy certainly solves a big problem, right? As I've mentioned, it is a great way to grow the account, spending as little time as possible in front of the computer. It's a strategy that's low risk, that's generating consistent profits, all by following some simple steps. And the last time I did the win-loss ratio for myself on this strategy, I still was keeping above an 80% win rate on my winners. And that's not even counting the ones that I flip from losers into winners. That's just solely on the winners that win rate is for. So it's been very successful for me in my trading, and I'm hoping it can be for y'all as well. Here's another example that was on SPY, where once again, I got a great signal on my indicators to look at going to the downside. So I took a trade And this one, I had to step away from the computer. I remember it because in my head I was kind of kicking myself for covering my risk too soon, but I did. I covered it too soon, wanted to protect my capital, so I actually ended up covering it for a debit rather than a profit like I normally do. But I still reduced my down to a $91 debit per contract. So it was a greater risk at first. I reduced it down to that. And then a few days later, I was still able to close out of the trade for a small $4 profit per contract. And of course, the main thing about that, right, is I've protected my capital. So I covered the trade for a small debit, reducing the capital risk, and still walked away with a profit. It was a small 4% return on max risk, but still very happy to be able to do that with that strategy. So what are the keys to success? So one of the main keys to the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy on it being so successful comes from the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool. This is my dynamic duo of indicators, right? My Batman and Robin, if you will, of my trading plan. So as a person travels along their trading journey, they of course discover new ways to identify chart setups. I've certainly added plenty of indicators in my journey. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years now, and I've continued to add things to my charts to help me out on finding the best entries, exits, all of that fun stuff to successfully grow my account. And so the Batman of the two indicators to me is the divergent bar. And it's one of the new ways I found to identify setups. And to identify a proper divergent bar, it takes time to actually do the math. And the problems I ran into doing this before I actually had the indicator created for me was it took too long to do the math on each individual symbol. So there are a lot of charts that I was missing out on trades just from the time it took to do the math to figure out whether or not is printing a valid signal. So it stopped me from quickly finding the setups. And of course, the other issue was doing the math by hand. I, am dyslexic, right? Sometimes I might misread a number, flip it around, and that, of course, is subject to human error. And so sometimes I thought I had a signal when I didn't. At other times, I skipped over a trade thinking it wasn't a signal when it was. And so that was one of the frustrating things about this before the indicator was created. The Robin of the two indicators, right, the helpful sidekick, was the compound breakout tool. And this is a indicator that's actually created off of multiple signals that I take off of 3 separate studies. And the studies are the stochastics, the MACD histogram, and several of the simple moving averages that I like to use. So I looked at multiple signals off of each of these indicators and tried to have them line up to give me a valid signal, which is what the compound breakout tool does. And all 3 of these studies individually can be great to look at, but they can sometimes lead to false signals individually. So that's why I liked to combine all 3 of these indicators together, looking for signals that lined up, and it cleared up a lot of the false signals that I had, but it created a complete mess on my charts. If you think my charts are messy now with the indicators I have, you would not want to see them before. It looked like cluttered chaos. It was it was crazy to look at, certainly to try and teach other people the signals that I was trying to look at as well. And I knew there had to be a simpler way to view each of these signals. So when I first joined Simpler Trading, I was introduced to the master inventor of indicators, Mr. Eric Purdy. He's the director of quantitative strategies here at Simpler Trading. And I was told that if I wanted an indicator created or if I had a question about how I could simplify some of my signals, he was the guy to go to. So you don't need to be a developer, right? I know very little about coding. I found myself on Eric's doorstep, hoping once again he could work his magic so that I could identify a divergent bar with a quick glance at the chart, as well as combine the signals that I look at to create the compound breakout tool. And so with their powers combined, right, I explained to Eric the criteria and the math needed to determine both the individual indicators, and he was able to create the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool. And it's with these 2 indicators combined that create my dynamic duo. And it's what I use to be so successful in this profit recycling 2.0 strategy. So what does the indicator do? Well, the divergent bar indicator is used to help determine whether or not the next few bars, I usually like to give it 3 bars of time, will either create a higher high compared to the current bar that prints. And vice versa, it can also help determine whether or not it might create a lower low compared to the current bar. So it's a very quick and easy signal with a very high probability of following through on either a higher high or lower low within the next few bars, whether it's an hourly chart, that means the next few hours, a daily chart, the next few days, and so on and so forth. Um, what does the compound breakout tool do? Well, it can help determine what kind of trend I'm in, a bearish, bullish, or even a consolidating trend. And it also can help identify the start as well as the potential end of that trend. So having those two signals in line with each other really gives me a great clue on when to jump in and potentially out of a trade. So here's an example of those two indicators kind of combined here on SPX as of recently. So here on SPX, we had some great bullish divergent bars. These are these light blue-green bars on my chart. On the compound breakout tool, we had a beautiful bullish signal that printed back here and continued to last. And you can see here, it printed the next day higher high. Here it printed, next day I got a higher high. Here it printed, next 3 days followed through on that higher high. Back here it printed higher high. So it's a great signal to use, especially when you're getting the compound breakout tool to agree with it, to look for some sort of move to the upside. So what time frame can these indicators be used on? Well, it can really be used on any time frame. The divergent bar indicator can be a little bit noisier if it's on the smaller time frames, but still when you combine it with that compound breakout tool, it makes for a very clear signal. So whether you want to use it on an intraday time frame or on a monthly time frame, it works great. Certainly on the 1 hour time frame, I've had a lot of success using both of these indicators combined. So it's great on intraday to monthly. The divergent bar indicator can be used on any type of bar. I know some of you guys prefer the candlestick bar. I use the standard bar myself, but it can be used on either of those bars. So if you prefer the candlestick, this indicator will still print and appear on that as well. The best part about this divergent bar and compound breakout tool indicator is once you upload it, there's nothing else you need to change, except for maybe the color if you choose to. Eric has done an excellent job creating these indicators, so once it's added to your charts, you're typically good to go. So here's another example of the profit recycling strategy 2.0 on SPX on these intraday timeframes. Here we started to get a bearish divergent bar setup. We had bearish signals on the compound breakout tool in smaller time frames when that signal started to print. So I actually did 2 separate trades. When I took this screenshot, I actually ended up doing 3 separate trades that day overall, but I took the screenshot a little bit earlier in the day. Ended up with a minimum $85 profit per contract, which was a 51% minimum return on my max risk at the time I took this trade. And so it set me up for several different free trades going into the close that week, where I still had max profit potentials of over $500 on these trades. And at the same time, and that's $500 per contract. And at the same time, of course, still was going to walk away either way with that expiration with a minimum profit guaranteed in my pocket. So here's SPY, and I know I'm showing a lot of examples on SPY and SPX. It's usually my go-to on intraday trades, but it really can be used on any symbol. So here's SPY once again, printed right within that first hour, took a profit recycling 2.0 trade, covered the risk for a minimum 107 profit per contract. The next day, I closed out of the trade for an additional 199 profit per contract, locked that into my account. It was a 68% return on my max risk. So here's another example on SPY once again. This one printed as well on the hourly chart. I took the profit recycling trade and covered it for a minimum profit once again of $102 per contract. So very nice profits to take just within several hours of maybe watching of the signal printing to cover, right? I'm not even necessarily sitting at my computer when the trade covers and locks me in the profit. I just have an order out there ready to go. It covers, I get a little alert on my phone half the time when I'm away from my computer, knowing that I've locked it in. It's like, great, good to go. Locking in profits while feeding the baby, right? Here on SPY was another example. Took the profit recycling 2.0 trade, covered it for a minimum $80 profit per contract, closed the trade a few days later, held on to this one for a few days for a total profit of $160 profits per contract. So I doubled my minimum profit from $80 to $160 per contract, still walked away with a 21% return on my max risk on the trade. Here's SPX once again, right? Got a great signal here on SPX. The compound breakout tool once again was in line on the smaller time frames. Took that on the 21st of May, covered it for a minimum $30 profit per contract using this strategy. And then here's work. So here's a good example of it not being on SPX or SPY. Work back when it was also running into earnings gave a great signal on the daily chart with a bullish divergent bar and a bullish signal to the upside. So I took the trade on the 29th. A few days later, I used the strategy once again, recycled my profits, giving me a minimum of a 203 minimum profit per contract locked in, which was 148% minimum return on the capital risk. And once again, this I ended up using as a lot of trade to hold through earnings. If it had moved higher, I could have locked in an additional, I think on this one, it was an additional $500 profit per contract on top of the 203 that was already guaranteed to me at that point. But it dropped back down once again. Still a trade I hold. Don't know if I'll be able to take the full profit, but either way, walked away very nicely with that profit. And most importantly, once again, with the capital protected in my account. Here's SPX. This was a recent trade, right? This was back on the 8th. Took the trade the same day, profit recycled it for a $60 minimum profit per contract and a 43% minimum return on the original risk, all from the signals lining up with each other on the multiple time frames. And then here's SPX as well, another recent trade that I took where it had a beautiful signal of the divergent bar on the daily chart, a nice bullish signal down here on the compound breakout tool. So I opened the trade literally into the close that day on the 4th. Profit recycled it the next day when the market gapped up, guaranteed myself a minimum $300 profit per contract and a 207% minimum return on my original risk. So over 200% of a return on my original risk was already locked in for the minimum on that trade. And just really quickly, just to show you guys how, I use this strategy. I even have one right now in Tesla, where I used this same strategy. And even though this, if I were to jump into it at the close today, would have cost me $1.36 to jump into, I've guaranteed myself a profit on this trade of $56 per contract, which in this case, I only hold one contract as of right now. So it's only $56 in this account, but I have a free trade set up out there now with an additional $500 profit potential. So it's still a trade that I'm doing even into this week of expiration, right? So what did we kind of cover? Well, I introduced how to intraday trade without using a day trade, my strategy as well for flipping losers into winners, like that EA trade. I've also done that recently on Netflix as well, being able to protect my capital risk. My secret combo for trading, right? My dynamic duo of indicators, if you will, and the introduction to the profit recycling 2.0 strategy, as well as some examples. So what's next? Well, I've been there, right? I have blown out my account before. Thankfully, it wasn't a very big account, but I've been there where I've just lost money in my trading very early on. And I know that blowing out your account can be frustrating and disheartening. I hope none of you guys have been there, but if you have, I've been right there with you, right? It's totally an emotional wreck for your whole mindset, for your whole psychology of trading. Sometimes you even wonder if you can continue to trade after losing money like that. And certainly in this current work from home environment, even the most seasoned traders can still have problems with juggling responsibilities and still growing their accounts, right? As I mentioned, I've been trading for over 10 years now. And at the time, I knew I had to adjust my trading style in order to be in this new kind of environment that we're in. And certainly everyone can use some extra clarification on the chart and narrowing down great entries and exits. So that's what this class is going to be about that I am teaching coming up on the 27th. And so I'm going to really be diving in how this strategy works, the rules and guidelines behind this strategy for not only being able to intraday trade without day trading, but as well as being able to flip losing trades back into winning trades overall. And so there are several different packages here that you can choose from. The basic package at 397 includes the divergent bar indicator, my Batman of the two indicators. And it will also include a bonus class that I've pre-recorded for an introduction into butterflies. So for those of you who are new to trading and don't know what butterflies are, or you don't know of what that strategy is, or maybe you want a refresher on it, I have already pre-recorded a class that will be in there. And I like to do e-learning modules around it. So eventually there will be an e-learning module both around this main class, the Profit Recycling 2.0 class, as well as the Introduction to Butterfly class, to where you can kind of test your knowledge, right? You can go back and take the quiz and say, okay, I got these right. Oh, I missed this question. And if you miss a question, there will be a timestamp there. It will let you know exactly where it's answered in the class. So if you don't even want to review the whole class, you just want to review that section of it, you can. On the Pro package, it includes everything in the basic, including the Robin of the indicators, the compound breakout tool. So it includes all of those, including the compound breakout tool. And then the Elite package at $997 includes the 2 live days of trading. And I've actually added an additional live trading day about, I believe it's a week later from the 2 days. So not only will we have the normal 2 days of live trading, but the bonus extra live trading a week later following that. And the great thing about that is oftentimes the way I like to look at this is the class is kind of like the lecture in college, right? And the live trading is the lab where you can actually learn to implement what you've learned in the class in real time. And of course, I can't guarantee what's going to happen in the market those days, but my goal on these live trading days is always to try and make enough of a profit to where it basically pays for your education and locks it in for an overall value. Now, if you've taken these classes maybe in the past or have these indicators that you've purchased from the store, please don't worry, right? I'm not going to make you repay for them or anything like that. That would be crazy. You already have them. If you want to call in to Simpler Trading at customer support, they will be happy to get it to where you can a la carte just the class, just the live trading, right? Still be able to get the bonus class in there if you want to, if you already have the indicators for yourself, right? So if you already have those, don't worry, you won't necessarily be paying these full prices. Like I mentioned, I won't make you pay for that again. You'll still be able to follow along with the class if you want to. You'll still get the bonuses or the live trading, and they'll be able to work out that pricing package for you. So once again, a little bit more about the packages. The basic package at $397 includes the class on Saturday, which is a 4-hour class. Maybe it will go a little bit longer. I've been working on the class slides this week, and so ideally it's about a 4-hour class. It will include the divergent bar indicator, that Batman, as well as the bonus. So very excited about that. Like I mentioned, the class will be held June 27th from 12 to 4 p.m. The bonus, of course, with that is that Introduction to Butterflies class. So once again, if you're not familiar with the butterfly strategy, or maybe you just want a refresher, I do already have a class pre-recorded that really dives into what the butterfly strategy is. It also talks about some non-traditional butterfly aspects in there, how it's set up, and it will be a great precursor to our Profit Recycling 2.0 class, and that's available to you immediately. So if you do purchase the package, that's already going to be in there ready to go for you to view on your own time, whether it's today, whether it's this weekend, you'll have it in there for you no matter when you want to review it. The Pro package at $697 includes everything in the basic package. So you'll still get the class, the indicator, the bonus class, and the compound breakout tool, which is my Robin of indicators. And like I said, it's really made this strategy great, being able to combine both the divergent bar and compound breakout tool to give me very clear signals and setups on when to jump into a trade and when it's not a good idea to do so. And so it really has helped to narrow down. It's what's helped to make my win rate on this strategy above an 80% return on the winners. To be able to use these indicators combined on top of the strategy to really protect my risk and give me clear signals on when to jump in and maybe when to cover and get out as well. And of course, the Elite package, like I mentioned, it includes everything on both of those packages, both of the indicators, the class, the bonus class, and it includes the 2 live days of trading, which will be held on June 30th and July 2nd from 8:30 to 11:30. Then we'll take about an hour and a half break for lunch and come back for the last 2 hours of market close from 1 to 3. So we'll have those 2 days in there. And as I mentioned, you'll also get that bonus extra live trading day as well. So we'll actually have 3 total days of live trading. Usually with most of the classes that we do, it's about 2 days of live trading. I wanted to give y'all an extra one. That way we can kind of review any trades that we might still hold from our first 2 live days. And of course, ideally, give us an extra day to try and make some money to pay for the class, and hopefully, like I did with my one-on-one coaching, to be able to completely pay for your education and also put some more money back into your pocket as well. So it's kind of like you're walking away with money and the education for free. That's the ideal, right? That's my goal. So at the end of the day, the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy can help you create consistent profits with very limited risk and protect capital when the technicals start to change direction on you. So I, of course, want to leave the guesswork out of your trading. I want to give y'all a simple step-by-step plan on how to take these entries, creating profits in your account while spending less time in front of the computer. That way you're able to do your own thing, whether you're like me and you're a stay-at-home mom, trying to work and balance everything in life, or maybe, like I said, you have your own job that you're doing, or you just want to go out and do your own thing. Maybe you like to fish or something like that, and you want to go out and spend the day fishing. You don't necessarily want to be all day at the computer. This is a great way to be able to do that and grow your account without spending all the time looking at the chart during market hours. It also gives you more information about the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool, right? I really want to dive into how these signals can work out for your trading plan and your trading strategy. Put those in your toolbox of useful indicators, and also how to help you identify potential entries and exits, as well as what kind of trend you might be in. And last but not least, of course, how to grow your account even if you've struggled in the past. Like I've mentioned, I've been there first when I first started trading, and I was making winners. It almost stinks when you win so much on your first few trades, or your first trades, and then you take that loser because you have no idea how you got there, right? And I've certainly struggled in the past when I first started trading on how to grow my account. And so I want to give you a strategy. I want to give you tools so that you don't have to fall into the same pitfalls that I have, or if you have been in those pitfalls before, that you can get yourself back out of them. So, and of course, with the days of live trading, I want you to understand how to identify the steps using those 2 dynamic indicators, right? The divergent bar and the compound breakout tool, and ways to implement the Profit Recycling 2.0 strategy live during market hours, right? I want to show you in real time the signals that I'm looking at, when they print, when to jump into the trade, what kind of trade you're jumping into, how to intraday trade it without day trading. I want to be able to teach all of y'all that during those live trading days. And ideally, like I said, my goal, I can't promise anything because I don't know what those market days will hold, but my goal is that you recoup your education fees and ideally, of course, still walk away with a profit in your pocket. So once again, those packages are the basic at $397, including the profit recycling class, the divergent bar indicator, the bonus or introduction to the butterflies class. The pro package, which is at $697, includes both the divergent bar and compound breakout tool. And these are really great prices, guys. I know some of you, before we even did this webinar, were asking, how can I get the indicator, the divergent bar indicator? How can I get the compound breakout tool? And typically, those are almost as much as what these packages are individually. So by jumping in now, you're getting a huge discount, not only on the indicators, but you're basically getting these classes for free with them as well. All of the education that comes around this strategy. And of course, the Elite at $997 will give you those bonus of the live trading days. And even if you can't be there for the full live trading day, right? Maybe you can only join in on the morning or the afternoon. Those sessions will also be recorded and put into the class files. So if you want to see how I'm still doing it in real time, even if you can't join for some of those days, maybe you'll be able to watch the recording of those sessions at your convenience anytime you want and watch how I'm implementing them live during market hours. So, and a new and exciting feature here at Simpler Trading is we now accept PayPal credit, which is this blue little area right here. So you can just add the product that you'd like to your cart, click on PayPal credit, and you'll apply for a line of credit through PayPal with 0% interest for 6 months. So if you want to pay small amounts at a time, certainly, I'm all about preserving capital if it's easier to make it in payments. I completely understand, and this is a great way to be able to do that so you don't have to foot out, $397 or $997 all at once. You can do it in smaller monthly payments at a time. And so please don't sit there. If you have any questions, let me know. Now is the time to ask. And here, of course, is the URL. If you wanted to sign up for one of those packages, it was down at the bottom of the screen. It's simplertrading.com/recycle that you can go to. Or like I mentioned, if you have one or both of the indicators already, but you're really interested in taking the class, you're really interested in joining in for the live trading days, please feel free to call customer support and they will be happy to put together a package for you on both of those without having to pay the extra money for those indicators, right? I won't make you pay twice for those. How do I scan for my trade, Sophia? So certainly the divergent bar indicator and the compound breakout tool can be both used in the Thinkorswim scanner. I myself, like I said, with a lot of my examples, I usually like to focus on SPX because to me, it's a great one to be able to intraday trade it, and it's a cash settled index, so I don't have to worry about assignment or anything like that with it. So that's usually my go-to just for myself, my personal preference. But you can use the scanner on Thinkorswim to scan for these indicators. Or what I also like to do is just go through the watch lists that I've created. Yeah, a great question, Greg. So I know some of you are probably asking, how is this different from the original profit recycling class? The main differences between this class versus the profit recycling class back in 2018 is that this gives you very clear signals and setups on when to jump in, right? There's not as much guesswork involved on when to jump in or when to cover on a trade. It gives you a very clear signal on when to jump in, and sometimes it gives you a clear signal on when you need to cover the trade if you hadn't done so already. The second thing about this is that it really helps protect against theta decay. So for some of you who took the original class, y'all know that theta decay was an issue that you needed to be aware of when intraday trading. This one, not as much of an issue. You don't have to worry so much about theta decay, even if you're using SPX on a same day expiration, unless the signal completely reverses against us, right? You don't have to worry about theta decay with how this strategy is set up. And the third thing is it's very low risk. In volatile markets, right, you usually see those option strikes certainly increase in value. On SPX, when it was March and we were seeing that crazy volatility, sometimes even those out of the money strikes on the same day expiration would be worth $20, $30 just for one contract. And so you started off with a huge amount of risk. This is not the case with this strategy. This strategy uses very small capital risk, even in those volatile environments. So those are the main differences between this classes. One, the signals are different. They're much more clear. It still uses the compound breakout tool, but it adds to that the divergent bar indicator to help really precisely time when to jump in and out. It really protects you against theta decay. So that's why I have the ability to walk away from my computer and not have to sit there watching it, because I don't have to worry about theta decay on these trades. I can walk away, come back in an hour and a couple of hours, see if I've gotten my fill. If not, then I can take action then. But I don't have to usually worry about a full loss on the trade because of the theta decay around it. And the third thing is, of course, if for some reason I was taking a full loss on that trade, which I don't think I've done using the strategy, but if I were to, right, it's a very low capital cost. So it's not $20, per contract on one option strike that I could potentially lose. It's a very, very small capital risk. Usually, depending on how I start off the trade, maybe a couple dollars, maybe less than $1 of capital that I'm putting out there per contract. And then I'm able to cover and protect it. So great question, Greg. Thanks for that one. What kind of trade is... no, Ralph is not just using butterflies, but it does incorporate them. So that's why I've given that bonus class out there. So that way, if you're not familiar with the butterfly strategy, you can certainly learn about it. And then certainly that will be implemented and applied into Saturday's class as well. And I don't start with a butterfly trade solo, no, but it does incorporate the butterfly strategy. So it's important to certainly understand what it is. And Richard, like I said, my win rate so far on this, for myself at least, has been above 80% on winners versus losers. And the losers don't count the ones that I've flipped from losing into winning trades either. So my win rate's probably a little bit higher than that overall. But in that class, we will be talking about how to protect trades that are going against you and how to flip them either to at least protect a portion, if not all of your capital, right? So you don't take that full loss, or ideally protect it to where you're still walking away with a profit at the end of the day, even though the technicals and the chart signals might have reversed against you. And as soon as you have the indicator bear, you can install it on as many accounts as you want. So if you have multiple Thinkorswim accounts, you can use it in all of those accounts once you've gotten the indicator. So once you have it, it's yours, not a problem. And the class will be recorded, absolutely, Tony. So if you have to work on June 27th, or maybe you're only able to attend a portion of the class, will be recorded, and it will always be available to you on the Simpler Trading website. So, as long as the website's up, even if it's a year later and you want to review the class, that recording will still be there for it, to where you can go back, review the education. Like I said, take the e-learning module, quiz yourself once again, see where you might need a refresher on what you've learned. And then, of course, review it on your own time. And that will be for the class itself. If you sign up for the live trading days, that's also for the live trading days. All of those sessions will be recorded and added to the class. The bonus class will automatically be in there. If you've purchased it, I've already recorded it, like I mentioned, so that's ready to go and available now, and that will continue to be in there available to you as well. And Jim, this is the blue light special, right? Like I said, those indicators in the store alone can cost quite a bit of money, as the same as the basic package. So this is kind of the blue light special, where you're getting those on discount, as well as the class and the bonus class. And depending on what package you get, of course, the live trading days too. So really looking forward to that. And like I said, if you have the indicators already, or maybe you have one and you want the other as well, or you have both of them, you can still call into customer support, and they will give you an a la carte option if you still want to join in on this class to learn what this strategy is about, to join in on the live trading, and they'll be able to give you that at a discount. So you're not paying the full package price for those indicators again. We don't want to do that to you guys. So if you already have it, great. And yeah, Ashvin, I will give you the scan for the tools. So that way, if you want to put them in your Thinkorswim scanner, you'll have them available. I'll make sure to give those out on class day and make sure they're a part of the class files. So even if you lose the scan, or maybe it disappears off your Thinkorswim account, it will still be available to you to put in there. And I certainly love the Pro Squeeze indicator, but I don't necessarily use it with this strategy. I do like to use the standard squeeze, which is free on Thinkorswim. I'll certainly take that into consideration when I'm looking for a setup, but it's not necessarily needed for this strategy to be able to use it. And certainly the Pro Squeeze is not necessarily needed for this strategy. And they work on Thinkorswim. I have an account in Tastyworks because I personally think that they're a great platform to trade off of with the options. They have great commission rates. But the indicators are available on Thinkorswim, and I believe also TradeStation. MJ, it depends on how many signals I get a day. So for example, on one of those examples, I showed where I had locked in 2 trades. I technically took 3 intraday trades all in the same day, just off of SPX alone, based off the signals that I got, and we're able to lock it in. Sometimes I might only take 1 trade a day. Certainly on the daily chart, I'm able to get multiple signals a day. I took a few trades today, actually. starting off with the strategy. That gave me some great signals. So you can definitely find some trades out there, depending on what time frame you're looking at, to be able to take at least a trade a day, in my opinion, if not more. And I feel like it's a pretty easy strategy to be comfortable with because of it being so strict on what is a good signal, what isn't. So like I said, there's not as much guesswork involved on when do I need to enter the trade? Is this a good entry? Do I need to cover it? It's very straightforward. So my hope is that it comes very naturally to y'all, that you're able to follow the step-by-step plan, and that you can start to implement it immediately into your trading plan yourself to start growing your account as well. And yes, Zeb, I do use options for this strategy. Absolutely. I use options. I'm 100% an options trader, so it certainly involves them. And Laura, great question. So I know some of y'all like to use Raghee's grab candles or the 10x bars. What I recommend doing, if this ends up overriding that or something like that, is what you can do is you can pull up your Thinkorswim charts. Here are my SPX intraday charts, for example, and you can put it into grid mode. So if you really like the 10x indicator, maybe you implement that with this strategy as well. What you can do is make yourself a grid like this, and on one chart you have the 10x bars or your grab candles, and on the other chart you can have the divergent bar indicator. So that way you can still look at both of those signals clearly, and ideally, right, if they're in line with each other, maybe it gives you an even better signal to jump in and take a trade off of it. So that's the workaround I've found using whenever I have something like that and I want to look at both of those indicators. I usually just pull up a grid like that and have the two different study sets on each chart. And absolutely, Seth, I'll show y'all how I use the scanner during the live training on Thinkorswim. Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to do that. And Val, yes, I've used these signals for years now. Now, the indicators themselves have been created more recently. 2018 for the compound breakout tool. Last year is when, well, almost 2 years now is when the divergent bar indicator was created as well. 3 years for the compound breakout tool. When I created and backtested that and had it released. So the signals all work on the indicators. I made sure on both of them to backtest them at least a year before we even put them out in our store. And then before Eric even created the indicators, these were signals that I've been using for years in my trading. I just now have a very easy way to identify the signal thanks to Eric creating the indicators. So they've been back tested, absolutely. And the success rate, Pra, has definitely increased combining these two indicators together. So it's helped out quite a bit. And like I said, before Eric created them, when I was doing the signals by hand or trying to really identify whether I had a signal on the compound breakout tool, it caused me to look at my charts a lot more. And so in turn, I was missing out on a lot more signals. And now that I know how to use the scanner, it's very easy to scan for some of these signals to jump into trades on. And absolutely, in the class, I will be exactly explaining how I do these intraday trades without day trading and how I lock in the profits, still leaving room for more gains. That's exactly what this class will be talking about. Absolutely. And also how to flip those losing trades into winner. We'll really dive into the details on the strategy. That's exactly what we're going to cover in those 4 hours in the class. And MS, it might be able to be used on a 20-minute data feed delay. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I haven't tested that out personally. But if it's something like a longer time frame, like the hourly or daily chart, I certainly on the daily, weekly, or monthly chart, I still think the strategy can be used successfully. On the intraday charts, the hourly time frame might still allow you some entries. It's not something I've really back tested though, so my data feed is live with the charts, but it still might be able to give you some signals there from just knowing how the signals work together. How does the live trading differ from what I do in the options room? Well, in the options room, I certainly don't alert out all my trades, John. I alert out a few trades at a time. And certainly, especially for those of you who took the profit recycling class last time with the original strategy, I usually don't alert out my intraday trades. So the live trading is going to cover all the intraday trades I do with this strategy, as well as any trade signal that I like and jump into. So I don't alert all my trades in the option rooms. I kind of pick and choose which one I decide to alert versus all the ones that I have in my account. And so in the live trading, you're going to see firsthand all the ones that I decide to get into on those days, and certainly the intraday trades. And Bob, the way this is different from the overnight profit strategy class is that it shows how you can lock in the profits as well as how it's used on the intraday timeframes a bit more. So the overnight profit strategy class was focused more on the daily, weekly, and monthly chart. It was only using the divergent bar indicator. It didn't really necessarily combine the compound breakout tool with that. And in this class, we combine both of those indicators to give you the clear signal. And I also teach you how to intraday trade without day trading. So that's a big difference between these two classes. And the second one, of course, is how to flip losing trades back into winning trades again. So it will go through kind of that process of, oh my gosh, like EA, for example, where the chart started to go against me on EA, right? Let me pull this up on a daily time frame really quickly. So here on the right-hand side was the daily chart. We had this dip down in EA. And so with that dip down on a short dated trade, rather than taking the full loss, I was able to flip it from a losing trade back into a winning trade and protect my capital. So we didn't really go over that in the overnight profit strategy class, certainly not in the detail that we'll go through it in this class. So that's another big difference between the two classes. And Zeb, yeah, the risk versus reward ratio. I personally, when I jump into trades, try and keep that pretty even. Like I said, it's very low risk trades. So we'll talk about that more in the class. But I trade smaller accounts. Like I said, I've used this in my $500 challenge account. I've never put the full $500 of capital risk into trades at all, right? I've always kept some capital back on hand. And I've used this trade to help this strategy to help successfully grow that account. So it just shows you how small of a risk you can use on this strategy and still lock in profits with it. And sorry, guys, I know I'm missing some questions. I'm trying to run through these. JD, yeah, so the risk of assignment, I close out of the trade. So if I'm doing a symbol that's not SPX, I won't use the same day expiration. So I'll just go out to a slightly different expiration. I'll still cover the trade using the profit recycling 2.0 strategy. And then I'll look to close it out maybe a day or several days later, depending on the time frame for that trade. Like I said, the Tesla trade, I did earlier in the week, and I'm still in that one going into tomorrow to see if I can't get that pin around 1,000. Either way, I'm still walking away with a profit, but we'll see if we can't add a little bit more to that with what might happen tomorrow. And John, no, the divergent bar indicator isn't necessarily new as a part of the overnight profit strategy class. So like I said, if you do already have it from that class, but you still want to join in on this one, maybe you don't have the compound breakout tool. If you just call into customer support, they will be able to adjust the package pricing, make sure you get what you're looking for, and not having to pay full price for it again. And Vince, we'll talk about that in the class. That's exactly what the profit recycling 2.0 strategy is how to avoid the day trading restrictions in a small account. Like I said, both of my accounts are under 25,000 that I mainly trade out of right now. And so I take these intraday moves using that strategy, and that's how I'm able to avoid the day trading rule. So we'll dive into that into the class, certainly. And yes, Sophia, great question. Will I be teaching how to manage risk? Yes, I will. Some of you might already be aware of my 25% rule, but I will be teaching that actually at the start of the class. So I will be diving in how to manage your risk, how I personally look at my portfolio, and how I know I'm never over risking my full portfolio amount, how I personally don't keep emotions from guiding my trading, right? How I don't slip into that dark side where I've certainly been. I've been there before. Every now and then I might jump in again. But when I do, right, when I do start to feel myself get emotional, I know it's because I have too much capital in there. And so I look at my 25% rule, and I'll certainly talk about that in the class and really dive into that. So that way, it might be something that helps you out in position sizing, both for your account itself, as well as for your individual trade on the risk versus reward scenario that you're looking to jump into there. Oh, Mayor, that's not a problem. Yeah, totally understand. This class will be eventually made available in the store, certainly. Or like I said, if you don't have the money to try and put into it now, completely understand. We do have also that PayPal credit option where you can pay for a small amount at a time over several months rather than just diving into the full payment of one of the packages. So completely understand that. And like I said, hopefully the live trading days will help cover the cost of the class anyways and still give you a profit overall. And all of the sessions will be recorded, Andrew. So in the basic package to the pro package, the class will 100% be recorded. For the live trading sessions to be recorded, to watch those, you will need the elite package in order to do that. Not a problem, Woodstock. Great. Thanks for being here. And this video, Chris, will be recorded as well. So this whole webinar, this free webinar will be recorded. If you signed up, it will be sent to you in an email. I'll make sure also to tweet it out, the replay, for you guys to be able to watch. But absolutely, you guys can watch this later. So, David, some trades expire the same day. Some trades I hold overnight. Depends on the symbol. SPX, I don't mind expiring that day because it's cash settled. Other trades I might hold overnight. But the profit, when it's the intraday style trade, the profit is still locked in. The capital is still protected within the same day. So like I said, I don't use any day trades, but within an hour, sometimes, sooner than that, sometimes maybe a little bit longer with the strategy. But either way, typically within the same day, I've protected my capital risk overnight, and I've guaranteed that profit overnight as well. So I'm still not using a day trade, but I still protect the capital within the same day. And then I'll look to overall close out of the trade maybe the next day or the next few days. And Christopher, the scanner, yes, it will be in the Thinkorswim account. And you do typically need a TD Ameritrade account. If you use another brokerage platform, what I've done in the past, because I've hopped around from brokerage platform to brokerage platform, I feel like I've been almost with all of them, or certainly a good chunk of them, even as they've gotten boughten out by one company or another, like Charles Schwab with Options Express, Options House, Trade Monster, all of those I've been with in the past. And so what I've done to still be able to use the charting to still have real data on Thinkorswim and TD Ameritrade is that I've opened an account with them. I put a little bit of money into TD Ameritrade or into the Thinkorswim account so that I can get real data. And it can be a small amount, right? And one of my Thinkorswim accounts right now, I only have $1,000 that I put in there. And that's part of the $500 challenge account. I'm only risking 500 of the 1,000. But for a while there, it was just sitting with the 1,000. So that way I had the live data and I was able to use the scanner. I was able to use the charts in real time and just use that while I traded out of Tastyworks. So that's the workaround I did for quite a few years before I jumped back into trading into Thinkorswim again myself. And the minimum account size, Seth, it depends what you want to do. Like I said, I've been trading this strategy in my $500 challenge account. It means that you maybe can only take 1 or 2 trades at a time, right? I've traded this in a $5,000 and $10,000 account, which is a little bit more, still under that 25,000. Or if you have a larger account, you can trade it in there as well. Like I've said, I've traded up to a 7-figure account using the strategy and been successful with it. So it just depends how much you want to put in. Oh, that's great. Yeah, TWLL. We'll see how that one does, right? And then it depends on which account I'm trading in for the position size. Sometimes it's one contract, sometimes it's several contracts. So it just depends what your risk tolerance is for your account. And we'll certainly talk about that in the class. And Christy, the 500 challenge is going great. I have over 100% return on the capital risk. We're about halfway through the month. So we'll see how it continues to go from here. But so far, so good. Can't complain. And Oswald, I've been using aspects of this strategy for a while, but I will say it wasn't until more recently, within the last several months, that I really dived into this profit recycling 2.0 strategy and how I've been able to narrow down that risk, how I've really been able to protect myself against theta decay, even though I'm taking intraday moves, and how I've been able to still grow the account with it. So with this strategy in particular, it's been several months, basically this year, that I've been using it. But prior to that, I've been using a version of the strategy for years and been doing all right. But this new version of it, right, the 2.0 strategy, has really helped me protect against theta decay and really allows me to not be at my computer all day to be able to still take advantage of the moves, which is certainly, with a daughter now, with working from home, is exactly what I needed in my trading plan. And I don't trade futures, but if the charts are still the charts, right? Then you can use them on there. So if you're looking at like the ES, for example, the signals still pop, those indicators still work on that chart. So you can use it to trade futures. I personally don't trade futures. And Harley, the reason why the compound breakout tool isn't in the store currently is because it's been taken out as a part of this class. So if for some reason you just really wanted the indicator, you don't want to take the class, if you call into customer support, they should be able to help you out. But like I said, the compound breakout tool by itself is usually pretty expensive. So I would certainly try and look at getting one of the packages, or maybe having customer support create you an a la carte package, because not only will you be getting the indicator, you'll be getting basically all this education as well for it too. So it's kind of a good deal. And yes, the indicators are available on TradeStation as well. So if you prefer TradeStation, absolutely. And Rubberhead, no. If you only have a small amount of time to commit to the market each day, several hours, maybe, or maybe it's only the first half of the trading day that you can be in, or the second half, then you can still use this strategy to build it, whether you're doing it on intraday moves or maybe you're sticking to a daily chart or something like that. You can still use this strategy. There's still typically shorter term trades that you're taking even on a daily chart, and build your account that way. That's what I've been doing in my account. I don't typically, every now and then I'll jump into longs or into leaps, but typically I like to be in and out of my trades rather quickly. And this is definitely the strategy for you if you're the same way as me. I get too impatient sometimes. That I know is a problem, but this is why this strategy works great, is because it's low risk. And I do usually take those profits pretty quickly. Yeah, so the e-learning module, Tony, basically what happens, it sometimes takes a little bit because I have to send out the questions and things like that. But basically around the class itself, there will be like an e-learning quiz where I've come up with questions, multiple answers. You choose what you think the answer is. If you're right, it will let you know, great. If you're wrong, it will give you a reason for why you're wrong, and usually give you a timestamp on where you can go to in the actual class itself to where that answer is, and to give you the education around it. So for example, if there's a question off the divergent bar and you missed the answer, the timestamp would allow you to go back exactly to where that class is, to where the divergent bar in that question and answer is being asked and talked about in the class, and it allows you to review the section from there. So it's a great way to kind of review things, you know, maybe a month, a year later, see if you still have things down with it, or what you might need to review and freshen yourself up on overall. And Tomcat, we'll talk about TWLO tomorrow in the room. Absolutely. And Deb, a lot of my intraday trades are on SPX and SPY just because I've traded that index for years on intraday. So I really got to know its personality, if you will. But I've taken this trade on normal symbols, Amazon, Netflix, TTWO, Work were some of the examples in there, Roku, Tesla I did this week. So you can, EA was another one I've done this on. So you can use it on symbols, you know, whether they're popular or not, and you can certainly use it on the indexes too. I like SPX because it's you have a lot of expirations throughout the week, and it's cash settled, so it's a favorite of mine. And yeah, to get the class, guys, you can go to simplertrading.com/recycle. Here's the webpage itself to where you can sign up and claim those spots. So here's what the top of the page looks like. Tells you each of the packages that you can get. Like I said, the basic coming with the class, the divergent bar indicator, the bonus introduction to butterflies class. The pro gives you all of that, including the compound breakout tool, the Robin and Batman indicators. The dynamic duo is both of those for that package. And then the elite includes the live trading days as well, where we can really implement in real time. You'll see the trade alerts I put out there, and you'll get the recordings of those sessions. And it, of course, goes into details about each of those packages below. If you kind of have more questions about it, you need a refresher on what's in those or the dates. That's all on that webpage there. And Jim, I have watch lists that I've created. I'll share those watch lists with you for what I use in the scan. But on the Thinkorswim scanner, you can also scan, let me just go to it right now. You can also scan for actual symbols. So like, for example, if I wanted to do the NASDAQ 100, I could do that, click scan, and then see what popped up there. So you don't necessarily have to have your own watch list. I will share my watch list with y'all, the symbols that I like to look at and trade. But you can adjust it to your own watch list or just off of, you know, whatever categories they have in Thinkorswim too. And yeah, Andrew, this can be done over lunchtime. If you only have a lunch break to do this in, to need to look at the signals, you can. If you're doing it on a daily chart aspect, you can look within the last 30 minutes, hour of the trading day and take your trades then. Absolutely. And Seth, I can't tell you how many trades I plan to do on the live trading days. I know I'll definitely have some trades to be able to jump into. Like I said, I usually can find at least one signal a day. So ideally, we'll find some intraday signals as well, right? Maybe we'll have a day like SPX recently where I got 3 signals within a day and was able to take three separate trades off of it. But I don't know what the market's going to hold those days. So if I had the foresight, I would definitely let you know not only how many trades, but how much money we're going to make, right? If I could predict the future like that. And this can work in choppy markets, Shazir. So it doesn't have to be a trending market or a momentum market. This can work in choppy markets as well. And Thomas, no, those arrows that you were seeing, that is just me using the picture editing tool to point out where they're at. So there aren't any arrows with the indicators. That's not a part of it. That's just me showing you where the divergent bar is. And yeah, like I said, I don't trade futures myself. I'm mainly an options trader, right? That's what I mainly trade. Every now and then I'll get into shares and do some longer term stock trading. But that is my primary focus. I know other people have used these indicators though on futures. So if the chart can plot your futures chart on Thinkorswim, then the indicator should pop up for you as well. Yes, the grab candles and the divergent bar indicators are two completely different indicators. They go off of different signals and everything like that. So they're two separate things. And if you like to use both of them, like I mentioned, you can set up your chart as a grid, right? Still keep it each on a daily time frame, but have one chart study give you the grab candles and one chart study give you the divergent bar indicator if you want to use those together. And I think I answered the question on how this is different, but I'm more than happy to explain it again. So the way that this class is different, both from the overnight profit strategy class and the profit recycling class, the original one is one on the profit recycling class, right? It gives you a much clearer signal on when to jump into the trade. It protects you a lot more from theta decay compared to the original class does. So in the original class, you had to be very mindful of theta if the price started to consolidate on the intraday chart to protect capital and things like that. On this class, you don't need to be as concerned about theta decay. It is not as big of an issue because of how we set up the trade and how it works. The overnight profit strategy class did not teach you about how to intraday trade and locking in profits without using technical day trades. So that's a big difference in that. And then the main difference between this class and both of those classes, if you've taken both of those classes in the past with me, is that I'm going to also teach you in this class how to flip losing trades into winning trades. So I'll show you what to look for to where if the chart starts to change direction, right? If you were like me and you were in EA and EA dipped down and you were in a short-term trade, I'll show you how to take your bullish trade setup and flip it around, protect your capital, and ideally still walk away with a profit overall. And yeah, I like to do one contract trades personally, but like I said, if you can do it with several contracts, you can. And if you use the 10x bars, if you use the grab candles, just put them on separate chart grids and you can still use both at the same time. And I don't typically use alerts. I think other traders in the past have used alerts based off these indicators and were able to set them up, but I personally don't use alerts on Thinkorswim. So I'll have to check into that, Chris, but I will try and let you guys know about that next time. And yeah, you can trade this in a large account. You can trade it in a small account. Like I said, I'm trading it in a $500 account, and I've also used this strategy in a 7-figure above $1 million account. So I've used it in small accounts up to large accounts. It can be used in both. And you can use off the 30-minute chart. It just depends on how many signals are in a day. So sometimes I might not get a signal on the intraday charts and I might not take a trade that day. But oftentimes I'll usually get at least one, if not several signals to try and take a few intraday trades off of at a time. And the scanner does scan for both the divergent bars and compound breakout tool. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to make sure I answer all the questions here. There's quite a bit. I probably won't get to all of them, and I apologize for that. Customer support can definitely help you answer any questions. And yeah, if you did purchase the prior indicators with some of my older classes, right, or maybe you just purchased it from the store individually, if you call into customer support, right, let me pull up their phone number again. If you call into customer support 512-266-8659, they will be able to help you a la carte the packages to where you're not paying the full price, you're not repaying for those indicators, and you'll still be able to get the class and the live trading as well if you want that. So I think that's the majority of the questions that I've answered. I'm trying to scroll through quickly, guys. But I do need to get going here. So I do want to thank everybody for joining me today. Thank you so much. Like I said, this video will be recorded. It will be made available to you. But I do need to get going. Got to get my daughter down for bed. I don't think she's in bed yet. So I appreciate y'all for joining me today. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun being here tonight with you guys. If you do have any questions about the class individually, please feel free to message me if you're in the options room. I'll be happy to answer it. Or if you have a question, send me an email. I do get a pretty strong influx of email, so I might not get back to you immediately, but I will certainly try over the weekend to get back to everybody as quickly as possible. So thank you guys so much once again for being here and joining me on this webinar. Have a great rest of your night. As always, may the trade be with you for my Star Wars fans out there, and good luck with your trading journey, and I look forward to hopefully talking to y'all again soon. Bye.